those are
And
mine.
those are yours?
Yeah, I can help with that part.
Okay, I guess we will
I'll look later.
get started. Welcome to the You Want to Be a Writer group. And I think that we have a really nice panel here with a very eclectic types of writing, very different, and I think that you're going to hear a lot that will hopefully inspire you if you want to start writing. I'll go last about mine. So first I will turn it over to Bobby and she can start and then we will go down the line.
Okay, I'd like to just pass these out for people to get an idea of what I'm proposing. Just pass them around. Oh, well, let me just take one of them. I'll just take that one next.
Yeah.
I published my first book in 2008, and it was a history about the Holocaust, surviving children, and since then, and I took up writing rather late in life. When my daughter went off to college, it was like, what am I going to do now? And so I decided to start writing, and I took classes. The best kind of class is when you can read each other's work, and you can find out the mistakes or the problem areas that you want to avoid. That's absolutely the best way. I see somebody nodding, our professional editor here nodding. So that's one tip that I would give. What I'm proposing is that we allow you to do some writing of your own choice. I say memoir, but we don't have to confine it to that definition. In fact, I would just like to ask you, what's the difference between an autobiography and a memoir?
Memoir something short.
It could be shorter, not necessarily. I could write one autobiography, one paragraph about myself. So it's not quite the same, yeah?
I think a memoir is more personal,
In a way, keep going.
more intimate,
Yeah.
more filled with thoughts and ideas than dates and activities or something.
Yeah, that's pretty good. The difference is a biography just lists, okay, I went to school at Carpenter Street School and graduated from high school in this date, and then I went off to college, and I was the leader of the majorettes, or drum majorettes, or then I went to this job, that kind of thing, a date-by-date recording of your life. And I can understand that is a real good thing for a lot of people to do. They want their children, their grandchildren to know their lives. However, have you ever read anything like that, except for a very famous person, that you didn't find a little boring? So there's another way of approaching your life, and which is much more intimate and personal, and that is the memoir, where you structure your memories or your work through individual memories. One of the things that we will do in the first class, supposing people are interested, is that we will ask you to write down maybe 10 different times in your life. In fact, I'm going to ask you to think of one right now. I'm not going to ask you to share it, but I want you to think of some time in your life, not necessarily the birth of your first child or your best job or whatever, but something that has always stayed with you in your life. Maybe it was when you came out of the bathroom in 4th grade and there was a piece of toilet paper stuck to your heel. and you never got over the humiliation. You know, this was real for you and you've always remembered it. That could be one of your 10 or 8 things. So think about something right now that is meaningful to you. And it can be negative like that, or it can be positive like your first kiss or something else. So once you have that in mind, and this is the method we will use, we will then build a story around it. And that, think of a strand of pearls. If you want to really capture yourself, you could actually write a whole beautiful memoir by writing stories around these meaningful incidents in your life. And that will give you, the people reading your book, make it so interesting. Because let's say you're a grandma and your grandkids can read this and say, oh, that happened to me, or that happened to Susie next door. And that will evoke a lot of memories for that grandchild. And it also brings you into her life. I see you're really nodding here.
Exactly.
So that's what we will do. I like that people can share. How many of you can work on a computer? And it's not necessary that you can. Not everybody. Oh, well, most everybody. Because if we can get these early, before class, then we can share and give feedback. And it's always positive feedback. It's never negative. Because if you're starting out and you're not sure about your writing, the last thing you want is to hear somebody say, oh, what do you mean by that? That doesn't make any sense at all. You might say, as a critic, you might say, could you just clarify this idea a little more? So that's the kind of criticism we would have if we could do it. Also, some people just want to share a story. How many would like to just share something and have somebody else hear it? Well, let me ask you what you want to do with your writing. I should have started out with that question. Anybody have an idea? Do you want to publish? Do you have an idea? Yeah?
It's a very, in the future idea probably, but what you talk about as the memoirs, I tell people a lot of stories about different parts of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to write it down.
Capture them.
And maybe make some kind of a book, whether or not it's published officially or not. I feel like it's moments in my life that kind of tell the most about us.
You're already onto that. Yeah, that's a very good idea. Yeah.
I'm interested in writing children's books and also poetry.
Mm-hmm. With the idea of publishing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fred?
I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and my baby sister is 16 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
She wants me to fill in the gaps in those 16 years.
Hey.
Yeah, it's a great
What a-
introduction.
Yes, it is.
That's terrific. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? Anyway, we all have reasons, and we'll talk about audience and who, it's personal, but whatever, and how that might shape your writing, if you're writing for the public versus just your family. So basically, that's the idea, and as I say, we can work with small sections, and we can keep going as long as you want. The other thing I will offer is a personal, if you would like feedback from me and constructive criticism, I'd be happy to do that for you. I don't have to if you don't want it, but I can do that too for you, just on my own. So, have I said everything I need to say about this? Any questions? I think we could meet for 2 hours. Is that about right, Kathy?
Martha, but yes.
I mean, Martha.
It's okay.
Here we are.
Are you talking about an ongoing class?
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
part of what we were hoping to do today is, one, see what the interest was for people who may want to start a writing group. And Barbie was kind enough to offer a memoir writing workshop if we have the interest. So no, we haven't gone that far yet. So this was the first step to see what the interest was, if there is interest for that, and then we would probably start in March, because we've already done our February newsletter, so we would probably start in March and go from there.
Mhm.
We'll probably meet either once a month, once a week, what
I
would be
think
your
once a
recommend?
week,
Once a week.
yeah, for as long as people are interested. Maybe you just need to get launched.
Inspired.
But, you know, and then we will, I know we're going to hear about how to get published, and we can talk about that too in the class. But it will be more focused on getting you off the ground.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
So Kathy
Yeah.
is going to share about the book that she wrote next, and sitting next to her is her publisher. So we'll hear from her in conjunction with what Kathy has to say.
Okay. Well, I really believe in writing about what you know, a true experience. And so this book that resulted, called The Tree and Me, is a story about when I was 4 years old. I was trying to find God, so I went up into a high tree, and I'll read it to you. So what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm not really an author. I was a nurse for most of my life, but I wanted to write about experiences in nature that would involve parents reading to children and getting back to books, instead of always being on, you know, something that's electronic or whatever. And getting people to think about, oh, yeah, I could climb a tree, or, you know, I have a whole series coming up. I also have ones about nursing. You know, some are humorous and some are not humorous. And I also have, I don't know if this is a memoir or not, but I wrote one about the blizzard of '78. I was a student nurse, and I walked to the hospital, and I almost got run over by a plow. But I was a spunky person, you know, and I was the only girl on the cross-country team in high school, so I wrote a book about that. So it's all stuff that I went through, and for me, like when I got the first two sentences, the rest just like flowed, you know, and I had to alter the words in this to make it sound like what a child would think, what I was thinking and how I would say it. So I'm just going to stand up to read this. Okay. I had a friend that was a tree, familiar as my bones to me, knew its curves and branches, not needing to hold on because the tree held me. Looking down through leaves to streets so far below made life seem so much smaller as I began to grow. It seemed that all my questions were answered from up here, knowing someone bigger was living very near. Sent question on a paper aeroplane. What am I doing here? Then one day came an answer. I made a double dare to friend that I could reach treetop. He told me it was dangerous. I told him to get lost. Climbed up familiar branches, but then to where they're not. I kept right on going until I reached the top. There was no branch above me. There was only sky and air on each and every side, like a scary carnival ride. Treetop and me were bending in the wind, upside down, trunk near than far, swirls below of roof and car. I squeezed my eyes shut, and then I squeezed around the tree. Treetop, held my breath as if this would make it stop. Held my face against small limb, arms and legs a coil around it, sweat rolling down from me. because the bark was very hot. No shade up here at the very top. I was wrapped around the tree, but who was holding me? I called to someone bigger, since he seemed to know a lot, as we were neighbors, as we were almost neighbors in this very spot. It seemed to me that he was bigger than anything I tried. I promised I'd be good, even though I lied. I took a gasp of breath, then opened up my eyes and trusted him to get me down this tree alive. My friend is on the ground by tree. A little head is all I see, saying something up to me. His words are cut in pieces. He is in another place so distant from my own, in this land where I now live. The wind, the tree, and me up here. This is all I know. Bird landing on a branch below, since there were none above, came flying very near my head. "Don't take my spot," I yelled. She flew around me again, then to lower branch she landed, squawking up at me. "What are you doing in my tree?" I was hanging in the wind. Each time that it would blow, my world would change to fear. My will was not my own. I felt like I might die here, like people on TV. I'd held dead birds and bugs and snakes that I had buried, but never thought the word death would be so very present. It seemed to me that death would hurt, like trying on someone else's suit. Too tight and way too squeezy, and I would not be breathing. My friend's mother now arrives in that other world below. I hear her shout the word, "Police!" and think they'll handcuff me for climbing up this tree. I hear her shout, "If you don't come down!" into the distant wind. I'm the one that must decide. And so I start to pray. If I don't come down, here is where I'll stay. My sweat and bark have formed a paste that stuck me to the tree. The slightest move makes bark pieces fall down away from me. I look to moving branch below. It is miles away. I ask for help from someone bigger, then decide to do it anyway. Someone else's shaky leg puts foot on branch below. I realize it is my own. My arms and chest and face stay clenched. My shorts are in my underpants. I must look down again to find a branch for my right hand. My body tight like a pulled elastic band. Here comes the wind and moves the tree. A branch jumps out just for me. I grab it joyfully. Someone's looking out for me. Swinging sideways for a while, hanging between two branches, relieved to have my hands and feet on something more secure. So glad to have some tree above and not just only sky. No longer bending in the wind, no longer going to die. From branch to branch to branch I glide, down the familiar tree I fly, bark pieces stuck into my skin, on side of face and hair, except where shirt and shorts have been, and scrunched up underwear. The pieces that have fallen off have left a bark print there. The scrapes now pounding, oozing, red rivers running to my socks from grabbing the bark so hard. I land on dirt in front of a friend in one triumphant bound. I am so happy that I kissed the ground. I'm not going to kiss this one. I won the double dare. Ha 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 ha. The tree has taught me something I will not leave behind. The little girl who went up the tree was not the same one who came down. I asked for help from someone who was so far beyond, who now was very, very near, resting on my arms. He had come and found me, and I had found him too. He answered my question. My life and his were fused. He would help me throughout my life in climbing down many other trees, but I would always need to choose to take that first step to be free. So that is Ellen.
Beautiful.
Ellen can you how we took it from, oh, thanks, how we took it from this to that, because I am not, I write like a crazy person. I don't know where to put punctuation, and I'll let you talk, Ellen, but without Ellen, this book would not have manifested.
And without Lydia, Kathy's
Yes.
friend, the illustrator, this
Oh
book
my
would
gosh.
not be anything
Right.
of what it is.
Right.
Oh my gosh, her illustrations are absolutely glorious. They just
They really
glowed
are.
on the page.
Yes.
She drew them with pastels on black paper, which is why you see such glorious pictures here. So what I do is I take words. English is my specialty, and punctuation especially. So I do the editing and make sure that everything's correct. And I also help the authors get set up with an account on Amazon through Kindle publishing, Kindle Direct Publishing. So it's all self-published. And once you publish a book, it goes directly to Amazon, so people can buy it directly from Amazon. So it's a pretty simple process, but that's what I do to help. So I'm also a graphic designer, artist, so taking the words and putting them, this was really fun because the focus of this picture, for example, is way up here, so I put the words way up here. So what I do is I choose the typeface, I design the cover, I design each page to look the best that it can. I create the copyright page and the title page. And this is called the title page, for those of you who may or may not know. And this is a half title page, which just basically tells the title of the book and anything else that you want to say about it. And then I go through and put everything where it needs to go. And in the back, there are always pages about the author, and in this case about the illustrator as well.
And I just wanted to interject that I'm not really photogenic, and you took that pic. I was up in a tree when she took that picture.
And Lydia's standing in front of a tree.
Yeah. So, you're a really good photographer
I
too.
take pictures too.
Right.
So I can do it all. And if somebody needs a little illustration, I can do that
Yeah.
as well. I did that for Deb's book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what I do. And of course, on the back cover, there's always a little bit about the book and then a little bit about the people who made the book. So those are the parts of the book that need to get created by the person who writes it. And then I just put it all together.
Now, who does the production?
It's all done online. It's all done by Amazon.
No,
But
as far as who produces that?
they
The
do.
physical part?
They do.
Oh,
So once you get your account set up, and once I get I do I work on my computer and I do the page, the 2-page spreads, and I do a separate cover that looks like that. And I submit those to the online publishing, and then they make it into a book. So you can print one book, you can print 100 books, you can print 1,000 books, you can print as many, you can have them make as many books as you need. It's all up to you. And they print on demand. So it's print on demand publishing. So you don't have to have a contract. You don't have to have a publisher. I'm not a publisher. I'm a book designer and editor. You just have someone create your book and submit it. They have certain standards that you have to follow. They have to be, there are different sizes of books that you can choose from.
You also have to choose the categories that it's going to go on to Amazon in. So this would be under poetry, and I think we put under spirituality.
Yeah, and we put it under children and adolescents.
Yeah.
And it's even, appropriate for adults too.
Yeah.
I think we put it under children and young adults.
Yeah, something like that. So you choose your categories, and then it's published, and it's available for anybody to buy.
Which we do have several copies here.
I'm gonna sign them. They'll be in the gift shop. The proceeds are going to the van drivers that drive me around everywhere. So that's where they'll be. They're $10. So just something to keep in mind. It's a really good gift for families. I read The Tree and Me at a bookstore, and the children's ages ranged from 3 to 12 years old, and their parents were with them, and they were just fascinated. I stopped, and we talked about death, we talked about fear, we talked about overcoming fear, and I really included them, and even the parents were enthralled, and it was just such a great experience to see. The 3-year-old got it, and so did the 12-year-old, and it just warmed my heart to see it manifesting, in families, and they got it. They just got the whole thing. The kids these days are fascinating, amazing. Yeah,
Is this your first publication?
it is. I have a lot of books written, but
Poems. You have
Yeah.
poems written.
Yeah, I have poems. Thank you. I have poems written, and right now we're working on publishing one called Angels in the Snow, which is about winter. And Lydia, she is so gifted. She's doing the illustrations right now. So it takes a little time, but you can't really rush an illustrator or an artist. So that.
Yeah, and it takes a while to get the words right too. I mean,
Yeah.
we've met numerous
Oh, yeah.
times to make sure every word was
Yeah.
just exactly what she wanted to have come across. So it takes a while.
Yeah.
Probably takes longer than you think.
And Ellen can I don't know, are you open to helping other people with your books? or-
I can.
Yeah,
I've got one in process right now.
okay. And you have cards with you?
I brought my business cards, yeah.
So, yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions about how this all works?
How much would something like that cost?
It depends on if it's color or black and white. Color is more expensive. This is paperback. Hardcovers are much more expensive, which is why we didn't start out doing a hardcover book.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost in thousands of dollars to put everything together.
It depends on how many hours it takes to, I work by the hour. It depends on how many hours it takes to work with someone. So my basic rate is $45 an hour. And it just depends on how much work you want to do yourself and how much editing you need and how much help. And then all the work of putting it together, and then if you have an illustrator or if you have someone doing line drawings or something, you would have to pay them for that as well. So it varies.
So you don't take a percentage of the sales or anything?
No. I work by the hour.
So how much did it cost to produce that book?
That's a good question. I haven't figured it all out yet.
We're really good
'Cause we're-
friends.
we're
It's
really
kinda
good
like
friends, so.
Casual, kind of, we have to figure it out, we're not business oriented, so.
Yeah. So that's not a good example of
No.
how much it costs. But
They've been selling a lot on Amazon, and I just keep going to different groups and everyone like, I want to buy one, and it's just, it's fascinating how even just by word of mouth, so many of them have sold. And it just makes me happy to be putting that out in the world, you know, that you can have so much blessing and joy, and finding your identity for people is so important, and that's what I was writing about. I was trying to find out who I was. You know, I was really young, but I was really aware, and I didn't know, but after I wrote the book, I found out that Native Americans, they do a ritual where you climb to the top of a tree to find yourself, and you just stay there, and that's what I was doing. I'm very, very small amount Native American, Iroquois, so I just, I don't know, I just say write about what you know. And I thought that was a really good idea, Barbie, to take like a memory and then expand on that, you know. And so, you know, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So this is actually a memoir in a way.
It is. They all are. They're all things that really happened to me, and some of them are so comical. One of my nursing ones is so funny. So yeah, we'll keep doing this, and you know, I think through poetry, the poetry kind of takes on a life of its own. So if you're writing about what you know, just remember, like, what did it smell like? What did it feel like? What were you thinking at the time? What were you thinking when you were, you know, stuck up on the tree? And like, how did it feel? Like, I happened to pick a very windy day to go to the top of this tree, so I got like this, and I was looking down on roofs, you know, that's how high I was. And so it really taught me that I didn't need to go to the top of a tree to find God, that He was right there with me. And so, you know, I would like to put that out there, I part of myself into the world to promote unity and love and heartfelt emotions. I think that's what's really important.
And I think what's interesting is that one of the things I like about this is Stowe residents.
Oh, sorry.
Stowe residents and the different types of writing and the different types of process. Because there's many different ways to write, there's many different ways to publish, there's many different genres, and so I think that we have a very eclectic panel to talk about the different ways. So Dick Callahan wrote for the paper. So he was how he liked to write. He would write for the papers and the Daily News, and he brought in a bunch of his articles that he wrote about. And I think that, you know, to have someone sitting here, and who knows if when you read this paper years ago, you were reading one of the articles that he wrote. And I think that that's one aspect to look at, is what type of writing do you want to do? Do you want to write for a newspaper? Do you want to write for a magazine? Do you want to write for a town, the Independent? Is that what it's called here in Stowe, correct? The Stowe Independent? Do you want to write children's books? Do you want to write memoirs?
Or histories.
Or history, yes. For me, and I think a couple of things that were said, the nodding of our heads you might have seen, is being with other writers helps your writing. Being able to critique one another's writing is one of the most helpful things. I belong to a writing group in Hudson, and it's just amazing hearing what they do, and it's amazing the feedback that you get on your own writing. And again, it's not negative, and if it is negative, it's in a positive light. and it's spun to help you and assist you in your writing.
Yeah. My aunt, who's 92 years old in Columbus, Ohio, has been a member of a writing group for a really long time. And her favorite thing to write is limericks. Who knew?
Exactly, and in my writing group, there are people that write limericks, poems, books, fiction, nonfiction, history, so you don't have to find a writing group that writes what you're writing.
Yeah.
You just need to be with other writers.
Yeah.
And it helps, give you that push that you need to continue on. The other thing that I thought was really good that was said was writing what you know. Because writing what you don't know and trying to, or something that you're not interested in, really pulling from within you is going to help your writing as well. And then we talked about characters. And sometimes your characters, you think you're going to write something and your characters actually say, no, that's not what I'm feeling right now. And I read that once in a book and I thought, what? That's insane. And when I was writing my novel, my character's like, yeah, no, we're not going that way, we're going this way. And I didn't even have that thought in my head. That's not where I thought it was going. And my characters were just like, yeah, we're going this way. And they really did talk to me in my head, and they became a part of me.
Yeah.
And I felt for them, I grieved for them, I was scared for them, I was, a cheerleader for them. At times I was angry with them. But it was those characters that also kept in my writing. So mine is different as everyone else's has been. Mine is a novel. This is the only copy because I entered a contest. November of every year is National Novel Writing Month. And it's really good for procrastinators. I once had a college professor write on one of my papers, procrastination is a disease and it will kill you. Needless to say, I didn't get a good grade. So that has stuck with me, and I am a procrastinator. And I've written my whole life, and I've always wanted to write a novel because I loved reading. Loved reading. I could stay up in the middle of the night. I could read 24 hours straight just so I could finish a book. And then I'd be so sad at the end because I didn't want to leave my friends behind that were on that journey with me. And so I wanted to give that to other people. And so I had started many, stopped, started, and then I heard about this National Novel Writing Month. And for the month of November, the goal is to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to do it. And I told everybody so I would be accountable. And I started writing and pretty much had to go with 1,500 to 2,000 words a day to meet that quota. But life is life, so there were some days when I didn't write and I'd have to write 5,000 words in a day. But I did it, and so when you get the 50,000, then part of that is it opens you up to other things, and one of the things was that you get your book created in somewhat like Amazon. It's called Creative Space. So there's many different...
Create Space was bought by Amazon.
Oh, okay. So this was a few years ago.
Yeah, it used to be Create Space.
Yes.
Which is how everybody published their self-published books.
Yes. So mine isn't self-published because I have not put it out there. Because I want to go the traditional route and publish it. Writing a novel, I think, is the easiest thing in the world. Revising, editing, nightmare. I wrote this in 30 days, and that was in 2010. And I'm still revising and editing. So that part, I have chosen to do it on my own at this stage and through my writing group, as opposed to hiring an editor. I'm getting to the point where I'm ready to hire an editor. I'm almost there. I have a few more chapters at the end of it to get through my revisions in my editing. I also gave it to 5 different people to read and to catch different things. And it's amazing when it's in a book form, all the mistakes that you see. I had these little stickers. Every time I found a mistake, I'd put a little stick. All you saw was stickers. A friend of mine looked at it and went, "Is there anything right in there?" And I'm like, "I don't know." It was just amazing. Mine is very dark. I was a police detective for 20 plus years, and I investigated violent victim crimes. So what I know is of a very dark nature.
Rizzoli.
Yes, Rizzoli. Or it's more like SVU, Olivia Benson.
Okay.
Michael Conley.
Yeah, so this is based in Sandwich, Massachusetts, down the Cape. So I grew up on the Cape with my friend and my family in Falmouth and Sandwich. And this boardwalk is actually down on Town Neck Beach in Sandwich. So my cousin's a photographer, so when I was looking for a cover of the book, because it's based on this bridge, she came down to the Cape with me and we took pictures, and that's where I went with. Now, when, I'm going to be optimistic here, when it gets published, I won't have a say over the cover. That's the one thing that you typically don't have a say over when you get published is your cover. So whether or not they would keep this, I don't know. The title. Very rarely do you get to keep your title. They decide that they want something different and they title it something else. They're trying to figure out what it's going to look like on a bookshelf and how it's going to sell. So I don't know if these things will stay, but for me at least, and I even put my little author picture on the back. Yeah. So it's called Horizons Lessons Learned. And as she said, there's different parts of the book. And so you have to do this together. So it says, Martha Shea is a 20-year veteran police detective who personally and professionally knows the devastating effects of sexual assaults. She now uses that knowledge within the pages of Horizons, Lessons Learned. And then on the back it said, she tried to sit up, but he stopped her by grabbing her wrist and holding them above her head as the tears streamed down her face. Meet Suzanne Girard, a sun-kissed, ponytail-swinging teenager whose recreational drug use and promiscuity lead her to that fateful night where her life changes forever when she meets Grant Roberts. Meet Grant Roberts, a young boy who finds his mother's diary in the words of an enthusiastic girl with a bright future, and in the words of a beaten woman with no hope. As a teenager, he becomes a serial rapist, determined to teach other wayward girls a lesson in self-control, and now, as an adult, is on the verge of becoming a killer. 10 years after their first encounter, they meet again, this time to determine the fate of a stranger. Suzanne remembers his promise and is now forced to return to the place where it all began, while recounting the tragedy of her past and coming full circle to her present while fearing for her future. So that's what my novel is about.
Wow. I want to read it. Can I borrow that copy?
Does it become dated after a while, if you don't get it published right away?
No, because books are timeless.
Yeah.
And the book goes from the protagonist and the antagonist from the past to the present. So it goes from what happened to her and him when she was a teenager, and then 10 years later she sees on the TV that another girl has gone missing in Sandwich, and she knows it's him, and she knows she has to return because he made that promise that she one day would help him. And so she returns to the Cape in the hopes of saving this girl before it's too late.
Cool.
So what's written on the back of the cover makes you want to read the book.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah. That would be the point. The
Apparently
point
that
would be
worked.
that this, and well, that's good. I'm glad that it worked. So, after I wrote it and I got this done, and again, it opened me up to a bunch of different things when you join the group of National Novel Writing Month. And one of the things that I learned about was this thing called Pitchapalooza. Has anybody heard of it? So Pitchapalooza is the equivalent of, what is that TV show where, with Simon Cowell, and they all get up and sing?
Oh, American Idol?
American Idol. So Pitchapalooza is the equivalent of American Idol. So instead of singers, it's for writers. And it's this couple, they're married, they're both authors. They are both editors, publishers, and they wrote a book. And then they decided to start this Pitchapalooza all over the nation. And you go, you have no idea if you'll be picked. And if you are picked, then you get to do an elevator pitch. So you have 1 minute to pitch your story to a panel to decide whether or not they will take your story and help you get it published.
Like Shark Tank.
Hmm?
Like Shark Tank.
Yes, like Shark Tank, yes. So one was down the Cape. I wasn't able to go to that one, and then one showed up, you know, they were out in California, they were out in New York, they were all over the place. And so the one that came to New York was in Albany, New York, and I woke my daughter up and I said, let's go. We're going to New York. I'm going to do this. I don't know if I'll get picked. And we drove to New York, and I went to the group, and there was probably 100 people that wanted there to be the one that got picked. And I was one of 25 that got picked to pitch mine, and I was actually the second person to go, which I thought was going to be horrible, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm the second one. I'm like nervous, shaking, but it was the best because I got to listen to everybody else's without being stressed out. And my daughter was a cheerleader, and whenever she was competing, I used to score all the teams. So I did the exact same thing with all of the other writers that were up there pitching their story. And I actually got almost a standing ovation for my pitch. People stood and they were clapping, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was one of the only ones that happened to. And so my daughter and I listened to everyone, and we said, oh, they got it. They definitely got it. And if there's a second, then this person had it. And then I go, and if there was a third, I go, it would be me. Then they said, because they only picked one. And so when they finished, they said, okay, the panel talked, and they decided, we haven't done this before, but we feel it's necessary. We're picking 2. And so I looked at my daughter, I'm like, oh, they couldn't have said 3. And they picked the 2 that we expected.
Oh my gosh.
And then when everyone was getting up to leave, they approached me and said, could you please stay a minute? And I said, of course. And they said, we absolutely loved yours. We went with the other 2 for different reasons, but we are going to assist you. We're going to give you a free consultation and help you and give you advice on what we think you should do. So I was just blown away by the fact that they did this. And then another gentleman on the panel who's actually interviewed multiple presidents came up to me, and he says, are you really a police officer? And I said, yes. And he said, is the police officer in the book you? And I said, no, actually it's not. And he goes, have you ever thought of writing a book as you being the police officer? And I said, well, I have. I go, but this is just what came to me this time. And he also said, I want to help you in any way that I can. So I was in contact with both of them for quite a while, and they really offered me a great deal of insight and help to continue me going forward and really insist and instill in me to go the traditional route of publishing. They're like, based on your history and your story, you could go the whole 9 yards if you do the work and put it in. So that's why I chose to go this way. Doesn't mean that way is wrong, just means it's different.
It's a great memoir you can write down.
No, yes. Oh, trust me, that, there's too many people still alive.
Not what you said.
So, does anyone have any questions? What do people think about having a writing group?
I like the idea.
Show of hands?
Would it be during this time, like?
It would be during the day when the COA is open. So, yes, depending on what time it would be and what day, we'd have to work that out. But I have the list that you all signed up for this, so I can certainly contact you individually when we set that up so that you'll know, and plus it will also be published in the newsletter. So I did put on 2 of the chairs, but I don't remember which ones. On the back of 2 of the chairs is a yellow Post-it note.
Oh, it's on the back of this chair. I took it off and I stuck it over there.
Well, that's okay, so I don't know, it might be on...
No, here.
So, unfortunately, they're not very masculine, but just so that people could get in the writing mode, I had the clipboard for someone who likes to have, and look at, you've got the pad of paper that will go right into it. And then Shirley, for you, I have a notebook. So I figured that I would also try to inspire a couple of people to start writing.
Right in here.
Yes. So we will do that, and I really appreciate everyone that did come out to this and our panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. And as stated, the books will be in the gift store for $10, and feel free to mingle and talk. I'm sure that they'd be willing to speak with anybody that wants to speak with them afterwards.
I'll sign the books too, so that,
Yes, if anyone wants to see my book, feel free.
So what are you gonna write about?
I have ideas. I have to brainstorm a little more. Yeah, Mahjong is at 1 o'clock in this room.
Oh, in this room?
No.
No, not where we moved it? Yeah. Where's it gonna be?